This is the new 2025 Acura ADX, and it's Acura's newest small luxury SUV. With a starting price of around $36,000, this is one of the most affordable luxury SUVs. But is it luxury enough to be different from the Honda HR-V it's based on? Today, I'm going to review this car and we'll find out. And I'll show you all of its quirks and features. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the new Acura ADX, starting with a little overview. This is Acura's newest luxury SUV and also their smallest. It's like an entry-level compact luxury SUV intending to rival the Volvo XC40, the BMW X1, the Mercedes-Benz GLA, and the Audi Q3. The benefit of the ADX is that it's cheaper than all those cars. Those rivals all start above $40,000. But the starting price of an ADX is around $36,000, a little over, which makes it considerably cheaper. Now, this is the ADX Advance A-Spec, which has a sticker price of around $44,000, but that's the top level trim of this car. And even then, the top trim is about the same price as most rivals, kind of lower or mid-level trim. So it's a pretty good value, at least at a glance. Now, with the ADX, front-wheel drive is standard and all-wheel drive is optional and included on this one. Now, unlike most of its European rivals, the ADX is based on a mainstream non-luxury SUV. That would be the Honda HR-V. Acura is a Honda brand, and so the Honda HR-V is Honda's compact SUV. Then Acura takes the HR-V, they do their Acura tweaks and changes and improvements, and they give us the ADX. And I have to say, the two vehicles look pretty similar, especially sort of the upper half of the side profile, the general window line and sort of the overall profile and shape of the vehicle, pretty similar between the HR-V and the ADX. Often when you see sort of a mainstream model and a luxury model, they're more distinguished in terms of overall look, but here they share a pretty similar style. Now, one thing the HR-V and the ADX don't share is their powertrains. The HR-V has a 2-liter 4-cylinder with about 160 horsepower. The ADX has a turbo 1.5-liter 4-cylinder with about 190 horsepower. That makes the ADX more powerful, obviously, than its Honda sibling, and in fact, the ADX borrows this powertrain from the Integra. In fact, Acura told me they like to think of it as the Integra of SUVs. The Integra sort of supposed to be like a sporty, performance-y kind of compact sedan in Acura's lineup, and so this powertrain, in theory, gives some sportiness to the ADX, but 0 to 60 times for the ADX are in the mid to high 8-second range, which doesn't really make this particularly sporty or particularly quick, even for a compact luxury SUV. Not exactly a class of performance vehicles, but it's slow even by those standards, and despite the power boost over its Honda HR-V sibling. But while the ADX might not be one of the fastest SUVs on the market, and in fact, it's probably among the slowest, it does have some nice touches that give it a little bit of a sporty feel all throughout. For instance, Acura told me that these dashed lines on the running light are intended to look like the rumble strip on the chicane in a racetrack. This car also comes with metal paddle shifters, which is a nice sporty feeling touch, and it has Acura's distinctive grille with this kind of sporty, exciting design. I actually really like how Acura's grille looks, and it translates well to this car. Plus, this ADX, being an A-Spec model, gets a few other extra sporty touches, like, for example, a flat-bottom steering wheel, although barely. Only the very bottom part is flat, but it's there. there, we promise. The A-Spec also gets red gauge needles. That's an upgrade for the A-Spec, although the gauge cluster is digital, so that's just a change they do using software, but nonetheless, it's unique to the A-Spec. And this comes with stainless steel pedals that give it kind of a sportier feel compared to a regular ADX. And the A-Spec also adds this aluminum shift knob, which actually does look pretty sporty and performancy. But you'll notice that none of the upgrades for the A-Spec model do anything for the actual performance. You don't get more power, for example, a different engine or different tuning. You don't get better suspension, bigger brakes. None of that stuff goes into the A-Spec. It's pretty much all cosmetic changes for this vehicle, and as a result, the Integra of SUVs moniker, well, it doesn't necessarily fit. This isn't exactly sporty. It's really more just a regular mainstream compact luxury SUV. And with that in mind, there's a lot of regular mainstream compact luxury SUV in the ADX. The general overall style, like I mentioned, looks similar to the HR-V and frankly is just pretty generic. There's nothing particularly exciting or unusual about it on the outside, except for that cool Acura front grille. Although grafting that grille design onto this car really added a large overhang in front. You can see the front end kind of juts out well beyond the wheel. It almost looks like a Honda HR-V wearing a beak, getting this much extra space in front so Acura could fit their sort of cool, distinctive Acura headlight and the grille design into this relatively small-sized vehicle. And speaking of lighting, it's worth pointing out that in back, the taillight design in the ADX is fairly similar to what you get in the Integra, which does help give it that sort of Integra of SUVs kind of look and feel. But overall, I would say this design is pretty mid. It's not exactly a standout, nothing particularly exciting or unusual. It looks like a fairly generic compact luxury crossover, which is kind of their goal, actually. And inside, the same thing is pretty true. Look around this interior and you'll discover it's a fairly mild interior. Nothing daring or exciting or crazy in here. In fact, the most exciting touch is undoubtedly these blue accents. You can see blue Alcantara accents on the seats over this orchid leather. That's what they call this off-white color. It looks pretty cool, pretty neat looking at it. And you have the same thing over on the door panel, the sort of white leather set off by these blue accents, which gives it a bit of an exciting look, at least if you choose this color scheme. But beyond the blue and white, the other thing you'll notice in here, if you've spent any time in the Honda HR-V, there's a lot of Honda HR-V in this interior. A lot of times, luxury vehicles that are based on mainstream cars have a pretty different and distinctive interior. For instance, the Acura MDX interior, you can see right here, looks a lot different from the interior in the Honda Pilot on which it's based. But here, there's a lot of HR-V. For instance, the two vehicles share this steering wheel, basically the same. The ADX gets a little nicer leather wrap trim, but the overall look, feel, the design, exactly identical. It's basically the same part. Same deal with the stalks for the turn signal and the windshield wiper on the other side. Same deal with the climate controls in the center, the climate vents. A lot of this interior is taken straight out of the HR-V, which does kind of make you wonder, is this really worth a premium considering you're not getting that much of a different experience compared to the HR-V. Now, with that said, there are some nice luxury touches in the ADX. For example, this comes with a heated steering wheel, which is obviously nice, adds to your comfort, and you have heated and ventilated front seats, which is also nice to have. You have configurable drive modes in this ADX, and that includes an individual mode that allows you to customize the drive mode to your exact specifications, which is also nice. You have a panoramic sunroof in the ADX, which is another feature that's nice to see, and you have adaptive cruise control with lane keep assist, which is also a pretty nice and good luxury feature, especially in a vehicle like this. So even though the interior may not look all that different, you do have a lot of premium features, and you also get Google Maps. That's integrated into the infotainment system, which you can see is popping out here from the dash. Google Maps is a nice feature, comes standard in this car, and obviously this vehicle also includes Apple CarPlay and Android Auto if that's how you want to use your infotainment system as well. If not, it's worth pointing out the infotainment system is a pretty good one. Despite the relatively small screen and the sort of pop-out nature of it, it actually works pretty well. It's intuitive, it's responsive to your touch, everything is laid out pretty much how you'd expect, and I like the fact that they have physical buttons for the most important items, specifically a home button, a back button, your volume control, and then next track and previous track. You don't have to go searching in any menus or any electronic stuff for those things. They're all always there, mounted mounted right in that spot, and you can tap on them to do any of those things at any time, which is pretty nice. Next up, we move on to the gauge cluster screen, which in this vehicle is relatively configurable, not quite as configurable as what you'd get in some rivals that allow you to kind of choose exactly what you want to see full screen, and on either side you can sort of make it show exactly your preference and customization, but it is nonetheless a pretty configurable screen where you can see different preferences depending on what you want. One tech feature I absolutely love in this car is the camera system that can be pulled up with the push of a button at the end of the wiper stalk. You can see there's this button sort of hidden over here that's marked camera. You press that and instantly the cameras come up in the central infotainment system, and if you press it again, you get even more angles. This is a great feature because if you're pulling into a parking spot, obviously you put your car in reverse, the cameras pop up, but if you're still in drive in a tight spot, it might be hard to see exactly where you are. Just tap that button and instantly you're looking at your cameras. It's a nice shortcut feature in a prominent place, and I imagine that's something a lot of people would use frequently. Also worth pointing out, you do get a Bang & Olufsen sound system in this ADX. There's a lot of speakers, and it's a nice luxury touch you may not expect in a vehicle at this price point or in this segment. But overall, from an excitement perspective and from a quirks and feature perspective, this interior doesn't really deliver. It's fine, it's nice, it's functional, it works just like the Honda HR-V, and there's a lot of shared stuff, but it's not especially interesting. It doesn't have a huge wow factor, which you do get in some rivals, particularly the way that things are designed, some interesting quirks and features that they have, or the use of lighting. Some brands really go crazy with that stuff. That's not happening here. And it's the same deal in back. Don't expect a lot of excitement or unusual stuff back here. Probably the most interesting detail is the blue seat accents, just like they have up front. They're carried into the back, and you can see them here on the seat back and the seat bottom, although it is worth pointing out that the blue accents in back are ditched on the door panel. You don't get blue like you do up front. You just get white and then the gray and black plastic, so they cheaped out a little bit back here. Now, besides that, the rear of this car does have some nice touches. For instance, you have rear seat climate vents, which isn't always a given in this segment at this price point, so that's nice to see. And you have rear seat USB-C ports so that rear passengers can charge their devices. Fold down the center armrest and you'll notice there are rear cup holders, which is also a nice convenience feature to have back here. But other than that, nothing particularly exciting or unusual in the back of this car. I will say, though, rear seat legroom is bigger than I would expect it to be for a compact luxury SUV. A lot of times I get in these vehicles, I'm pretty tight back here, but this one feels a little bit bigger in back. It gives you a pretty decent amount of space back here, even for adults to sit in back, which is a bit of a surprise in this segment. And finally, we move on to the cargo area. Pop open the power tailgate back here, and you can see a surprisingly decent amount of cargo space, again, especially for a vehicle in this segment. The ADX has good cargo space, good passenger space, pretty good packaging in this vehicle in terms of overall interior room. And if you're looking for extra cargo space, you lift up the floor and there's a little bit of extra space under here. If you have something like small and fragile, you don't want it rolling around, you can stick it under here and keep it safe. Now, aside from that, cargo area doesn't have too much to it. For instance, there's no latches back here that you can pull and drop the rear seats. You got to go around to the seats and manually drop them individually on each side. You also have a 12-volt power supply back here, a cigarette lighter style charger, but you don't have a household charger. And in fact, there's no household power outlet anywhere inside the vehicle, which is a little bit of a disappointment. That's starting to become more common even at this price point. Seeing a household charger, it'd be nice to have one back here. Now, one cool feature that this car does have is a tailgate closing walk away feature. So you're grabbing stuff out of the cargo area, your hands are full, but then you have to reach up and press the button and walk away. It can be annoying. So here they've figured out a way around that. You press this button to walk away before you grab your cargo out of the bag. You push the button, then you grab the cargo, and then after a set period of time, after the key walks away, the tailgate closes, so you don't have to press anything after you've got your hands full, which is pretty cool. Now, that's a nice feature, but the drawback is that it seems to take the place of any button that allows the car to lock from the tailgate. A lot of vehicles have a button here, you press, the tailgate closes, and then the whole car locks. We don't have that one here. So even though the tailgate can close when you walk away, you still have to reach into your pocket and lock the door with the key, which seems like a little bit of an oversight. Still, that's your general tour of the ADX quirks and features, and now let's get it out on the road and see how it drives. All right, driving the ADX, the latest Acura crossover. First impression sitting in this car is that I do see a lot of Honda HR-V in here. I had the HR-V as a press car maybe about a year ago, and there's a lot of similarities between this and the HR-V in terms of materials, in terms of the way it looks, the way it feels in here. I will say, from a comfort perspective standpoint, it does feel nicer in here than the HR-V. Despite the fact that a lot of materials are the same, it feels quieter, it feels more relaxed, it feels more luxurious. You feel like you're hearing less of the road, you feel like you're hearing less of the tires in the engine, and definitely the ride quality is a little bit more supple than what you get in the HR-V. And so I think from like a just general driving perspective, it is a little bit nicer. Is it a lot nicer? I wouldn't necessarily go that far. The HR-V is shockingly a pretty nice car for a kind of an entry-level mainstream brand crossover. It really grew up at its second US generation to be a nicer, more luxurious car. And so this builds on that, but it's not like head and shoulders above it. Not that you'd expect it. To me, the real upgrade with the ADX over the HR-V is the powertrain. The HR-V is stuck with that 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It's like 160 horsepower. In the ADX, I think they intentionally hold that engine back from the HR-V, knowing that it would give it more power, make it more competitive, but they want to save that engine for the ADX to make it kind of like a special selling point. Well, the ADX has a distinctive Acura engine from the Integra, gives it more power. The drawback is it's still not very fast. Like ultimately 190 horsepower in this car, it's less power than the Integra, and 0 to 60 in like 8.5 to 8.7 seconds, it's really just not all that quick. And so even though it may be quicker than the HR-V, it's not really saying all that much. And in this segment, a lot of the little crossovers actually do sell based on their sort of zippy and premium feel. It's a lot of times people who are buying their first luxury brand vehicle, and they want to feel like they're in a luxury car, even if it's like the base entry-level Audi Q3, and they like that sort of sporty feeling in the powertrain, and they like the luxury ride quality. And this car certainly does not provide the sporty powertrain feeling. You're matched up here to a CVT, which I think does do a pretty good job of keeping you in the power band. I actually generally like CVTs for kind of normal cars, but in this case, you don't really have the benefit of a particularly potent engine, and certainly doesn't necessarily feel class competitive. So even though it gets this special distinctive engine, it doesn't really do much to like turn it into a sporty performance type vehicle. From the perspective of steering and handling, they want to say it's the Integra of SUVs. Integra is supposed to be kind of an entry-level car that is sort of sporty, except for the Type S, which is really legitimately sporty. This is exactly like that. It's an entry-level compact SUV that's sort of sporty. It doesn't really allow itself to get thrown around and enjoyed tremendously easily. The steering is heavier than you might expect in a little SUV, and so it does feel like it gives decent feedback, but it's not especially quick to steer, and it body rolls, it understeers. I mean, ultimately, even though there's like a sporty flair to this car, it is made for the masses, and it's not intended to be like a true performance car, and it isn't. And you can tell that acceleration, handling, etc. Overall, though, I actually think the ADX is a pretty compelling vehicle at its price point. It has a lot of nice luxury features. I got a panoramic sunroof in here. I got a lot of nice stuff, and it rides well, it drives well. But I am, I guess, a little bit disappointed at the differentiation between an HR-V and this. I think that if you spend big for a top-line HR-V, you get a pretty nice car, and this is kind of CR-V money too, so you get a bigger car. And I don't necessarily know that this has enough benefits over those vehicles to really justify its extra price tag, especially considering that one of those benefits is the powertrain, which isn't really all that great. Still, though, there's a lot to like about this, and I think at the right price point, you know, at a dealership, you negotiate a little bit, or if there are certain features you want that are not available in the HR-V, or if you just can't handle the HR-V's performance level, I think this car does offer a pretty compelling car, just like the HR-V is, just like all the other Honda SUVs are. But I can totally understand why someone might want to spend a little bit more for an Audi or Mercedes or a BMW and sort of get a more premium feel, not based on a Honda, with a stronger brand name, with a little bit more power and potency. And I think that's where this car kind of goes a little bit wrong. And so that's the new 2025 Acura ADX. This is a pretty nice little luxury SUV, and it's a pretty good deal in terms of pricing compared to its German rivals. Admittedly, it's pretty slow, and it's surprisingly similar to the Honda HR-V on which it's based, but it still offers a decent value considering its luxury equipment and its premium brand. Anyway, now it's it's time to give the Acura ADX a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 47 out of 100, which puts the ADX here against rivals. This crossover is fine, but not exceptional. It's slow compared to basically everything else in the segment. It looks a bit much like the Honda HR-V inside and out, and it doesn't have the premium brand name of the Audi Q3 or Mercedes-Benz GLA. Pricing is good compared to those rivals, but frankly, I would consider top trim versions of mainstream brand models before I got an ADX, like the Hyundai Tucson, Mazda CX-50, or even Honda's own HR-V.